Okay, so maybe one more for the series. Hello again. So, yeah, it didn't conclude on the 2nd, as I was afraid. Surprise, surprise. I took notes from the last video to tie up the loose ends and explain the date of this video because, oh boy, is it a while from the last date. Funny how I was lamenting that in the last video. So first things first, I sort of forgot that the judge told us first thing right when he first pled back in March that he's not going to tell us the sentencing on the same day that they do final submissions. So in a lot of cases, they do final submissions and the judge walks away, comes back a few hours later and sentences. But he insisted, in this person's case, that he would not do that. He wanted to go away and have time to consider it or whatever. I forgot about that. So one way or another, the 2nd wouldn't have been the last day. I did end up reading my statement. What an interesting experience that was. You'll get more detail about it again in that vlog that I'm going to be making about the whole experience, but it was very dramatic. Lots of crying and lots of tissue and shenanigans and ridiculousness. And basically what happened is that should have been the day of final submissions, but the judge went through all of the paperwork and looked into the pre-sentence report and noted mention of Métis status, and insisted that that be looked into, and if a Gladue report was needed, that it be written. And so then Mary, the Crown, argued, or how do you say, disagreed, and basically said, well, at least can we let her do her statement because she keeps having to prepare herself for it and then not be allowed to do it. So they did let me read the statement, as I said, but that's all that happened on the 2nd. And then they gave it until the 30th and decided that a report would be written, and then they put it forward to December, at which point a very bogus, very just ridiculous report was submitted, at which point the Crown argued that she wanted more time to get evidence that would refute claims within that Gladue report. And so it was then put forward again to January 20th, at which point she submitted her evidence to that, in many people's views, very clearly argued against a lot of things claimed within the Gladue report. Because it wasn't written with very good standards. There's no evidence behind it. The person just wrote based on what he claimed. So she got evidence to refute that, and then they also did final submissions. And the judge told us at that time that the final date for sentencing would, for sure, without question, be February 24th, tomorrow. And I am, if you couldn't tell, like on edge, super anxious about it. This means, so one thing the judge did also say before we left on the 20th is he made it clear that my abuser was going to be sentenced to some time of incarceration. He didn't say how long, obviously, but he said you should prepare yourself for the fact that you will be going away for a period of time. So one way or another, he is definitely getting arrested. He's not just getting probation. So with that in mind, tomorrow, no matter what, although I'm absolutely terrified that he's not going to show up, he will still be arrested, in the sense that wherever he is, like, there'll be an arrest warrant put out for him. So that's in a sense securing and reassuring, but it's also like, God, if he tried to run, that just made my life so stressful, and excuse me, until, it's all worked out. So here's hoping that he keeps going on the route of trying to get as little time as possible, which means being cooperative. Fingers crossed. But anyways, just trying to read through what else I said. I explained all that. So one of the things I said in my last vlog that I feel a lot has changed. A lot has changed since then. My feelings on the entire matter has changed. I sit a lot more on the page that most people might, in that I realize this person doesn't care about me, and hasn't for a while. He's seen me as an adversary for quite some time. I actually removed the restraining order at one point. It was in December, the December court hearing, so that I could speak with him, and he made it pretty clear that he would have to, he's got some issues, and just he demanded to be in full control of the situation and refused to seek any therapy whatsoever. And the simple fact was, as I've stated over and over, I want to try and reestablish a family with him, but it would have to be on the basis of getting a shit ton of help and therapy and possible medications or what have you. But that's just completely out of the question. And with that, because I've made it clear that that's the only way we could possibly reestablish family, he has cut all ties and made it very clear that if he ever had any of my possessions, they're probably garbage. He definitely does not intend to allow me to see my family dog ever again. He doesn't trust me, and has basically just been seeing me as an adversary for quite some time. And so, as a child, viewing this person as their parent, that it has just a special level of damage. That, as you saw, I was trying to steel myself for in the last video, but it's just something that's really, you can't prepare yourself for. When you've been through what you feel is abandonment from your original parents, and then you trust someone else, and then you keep trying to be there and supportive for them, even after they've ripped you to shreds, and then they walk away. It just has a whole new level of ow. That I'm dealing with and have been dealing with pretty intensely. My therapist tells me over and over that it's very natural, that I had this instinctual need for a parent to take care of me, and that I trusted him and all these things, but I just feel very foolish now to have cared for so long about someone who hurt me that much, and held out so long. But like I said in the last video, unfortunately, everything that he ever did to me would hurt a lot less, in all honesty, to me, if he still cared, if he didn't walk away, if it wasn't so easy to just toss me aside. Just every horror and anything he ever did to me just wouldn't have hurt as much. But it does, and he did. It's funny because I was saying that I had experienced a lot of lows before September, but I found some new ones since then, having to come to this reality. And the hardest thing to come to was on the 20th, and during final submissions, I came to learn something that was really hard to deal with. One of the reasons that that I believed his intent was good and that he thought he was doing the right thing, despite how crazy that is, to have raped and beat me, was because I really was under the true impression that he would never harm a child, and that I was the only one he'd ever hurt. That he'd got in fights with men plenty, sure, and been hurt plenty of men, and that's not good, but it's not the same. And I understood that his last time of being in jail in the year 2000 or something like that had been because he had assaulted a man in a bar fight. But I learned on the 20th that that charge was an assault against a 6-year-old child, and that it was originally a case with sexual assault. But somehow they managed to get him to drop it, or the judge to drop the sexual assault, probably because he pled. And they tend to cut it. If you take the plea, they'll give you less. It's ridiculous. So he was able to pawn it off as some assault off of a man, but he beat a 6-year-old child, and there was evidence of sexual interaction too. So that's just a whole new mind fuck for me, because it makes me realize that I was the second victim of his. And it makes me have to realize that he is so ill that he could really do it again. He's going to be really lonely when he comes out, because he's not going to be in jail that long. And he could do it again. And I didn't think he could. I believed he couldn't. And, you know, that's my mistake because of all the things that he managed to make me believe, like that he cared and thought we were family. But it's a new thing to have to deal with. To realize that he could victimize someone else. So, those are things that I'm processing right now. I plan on at least informing myself through social groups on what he's done with everything, the dog and everything. But he's made it pretty clear that he doesn't trust me or want family with me or anything like that. And that he's very, very ill and does not want to seek mental health help. And so that's very unfortunate, obviously. And it's only really most devastating to me because I saw him as a parent figure. And so this abuse case is sort of family court in that sense, although it's not family court. But anyway, it's got that whole emotional aspect to it that makes things a little bit more complicated than just any abuse victim situation. But I'm working on it, and if you heard all the clicking in the background, that's my spouse. He's been here helping and being supportive, and tomorrow we're gonna go and hopefully he'll show up, be sentenced, and I will get a few years of peace at least. And maybe through the information and the experience that I share in my vlogumentary, I'll at least be able to get something out of this experience and helping other people, because it really feels pointless now, in that, like, incarceration doesn't help people with the way how poorly it's structured. He doesn't want mental health help, and he's clearly someone who reoffends because he's really messed up and he's really lonely, and when he interacts with people he starts hurting them. That's just how it works when you're that ill. So it's a hard situation to realize I'm in, and to feel like all the purposes that I had behind reporting my abuse aren't being fulfilled. But he is being registered as a sex offender, and for the rest of his life, and he's spending a bit of time out of the public and not hurting people. So people are trying to get me to take solace in that, and I am working on it. In the meantime, I do still agree with my conclusion. And this is the conclusion, for sure conclusion, but the conclusion of my last video is still very true. It's very important that you, if you are experiencing abuse of any type, reach out to other people. People make life worth living, and connections are most definitely what helped me get out of my abusive situation and what keep me going through all this crazy ridiculousness. And it can get better. Even if you don't end up reporting it, one way or another, your life can get better. You don't have to keep living like that. And you do deserve respect, no matter what you've done, no matter who you are. Even if you've been an abuser, you can get better, and recognizing that you can get better is step number one. So, it's a hard experience, but you guys aren't alone, and that's the end message of this series that I want you guys to know. You are not alone, and others out there are hurting too, but we can get better together. We can heal together. If you guys want any support over what you're going through, please feel free to find the email in the description of these videos, and feel free to email me for support. I did disable the comments for safety of trolls, but you're always welcome to email me. And as always, please do join me again next week or soon, whenever I can get myself back up, where I try again to share a little something I've experienced or learned in life.